everybody. How is everyone doing today? It is Monday, April 15th, and you know what April 15th means. It means that it's time that everyone goes out, and if you haven't already, you got to make sure you're paying your taxes today. That's right, pay the theft, pay the man. The man needs your money. Whether it's paying to do surveys and testing to see how ducks respond to cocaine, whether it's to send $4.2 billion to Ecuador. There's plenty of needs for your tax money to go to, and today we celebrate. We celebrate the days in which our wonderful, beautiful politicians take in your money, and they've been doing this for 105 years now. I think it was 105. But they've been doing it for well over 100 years now, taking in our money and squandering it and, just doing the despicable things that our politicians do for us. But nonetheless, welcome in, guys. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Jason Lyon, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. Your neighborhood-friendly libertarian, come to talk to you about politics and social issues and bringing it back down to the individual where it belongs. Want to give a big shout-out and a big thank you to Muddy Waters Media for allowing me to come out here, voice my opinions, and use my voice and to use their platforms. 106 years. Thank you, Black Lives Matter, too. Might it be Black Lives Matter as well? Nah, I'm not gonna go after that. But I appreciate it. You know, the correction is very important, or the clarification. There we go. So it's that dreary day, and I was sitting down after I got home from work today, and I was like, what are we gonna go live about? What are the big topics that have been going on since Friday? And I realized something. I realized that the devastation that was Mr. Julian Assange being arrested was so destructive. It was so much news. It was every bit of what the media could talk about. It was what I wanted to talk about. It was what everybody wanted to talk about. That was such a big moving piece in last week's news cycle that even Notre Dame could be burning up as we speak, and it's still like, it's just not the same. There's just not the same impact. Now, of course, I wish it was satire using that as a piece of evidence, but yes, Notre Dame is burning right now. The cause is still in question as to what's causing it to burn. But it's still burning down. We've lost one of the towers there. Fire department is there trying to take care of this, contain the fire, and quit the spread. They do believe they'll be able to save large swaths of the building, or large portions of the building, and that's of course a good thing to be able to keep that piece of history from 1200s. I believe it was 1200s. So as horrible as that is, I'm still stuck on the Julian Assange. And I've been noticing a lot of people still talking about it and trying to understand the actual impact, if it's good for the country, if it's good for this, and how that goes. Was it electric reasons? So they're not for sure. Many people are believing that because of the renovations that were being taken there, within the Notre Dame, that may be a piece of this, that may be a part of it. And we won't know for, kind of like Boogie said there, 48 hours. Give us some time, allow the story to develop and get away from the gut feelings. So we'll give it, we'll have to see what Friday comes, or when Friday comes. I'll of course be able to dig into that a little bit deeper by then, and so that will be a good time. I'm going to throw up the call-in line tonight, guys. I'm sorry, it was a little bit of a fast-paced weekend for myself, and it was a little bit of a slow weekend. If there's a topic you guys want to cover, you guys want to call in about, feel free to call in. If you guys feel like I'm butchering the news or butchering the stories, feel free to call in, take over the show. I mean, do what you want to do. We will try to keep topics limited, but it is up there. So if you guys do want to call in, 802-671-5328, 802-671-5328. We'll get you in on the line as soon as my page decides to start working. But so in news, what's been going on out there in the world? Of course, we got more. I do have to, because it is tax day, we got to talk about some of the atrocious things that have been spent, that the government has been spending money on. For example, $300,000. $300,000. 300 big ones spent on 391 coffee mugs. Coffee mugs. For more details on this, since 2016, the Air Force has spent $326,785 on 391 mugs. These mugs have the ability to plug into the aircraft and have the ability to reheat beverages while in flight. What a nice, tasty beverage. Unfortunately, their odd shapes makes them susceptible to shattering, thus necessitating the replacements. So the Air Force, in all of its glory, of course, the lesser of the manly branches, if you will. I can say this, I'm a veteran. Don't go after me for it. The Air Force, the one that gets picked on the most by the other three branches. That's where I'm excluding you, Coast Guard. They've spent over $300,000 since 2016. So in 3 years, $300,000. $100,000 spent each year on mugs. Thank you, taxpayers, for helping out, making sure that your pilots have a nice, tasty, hot beverage. $400,000 to promote asset forfeiture in Paraguay. Yeah, that's right. We're throwing money over to the other side. In November 2017, U.S. Customs Border Patrol awarded $297 million contract to an outside company called Accenture, with the understanding that it would recruit and hire 7,500 more agents in 5 years. 10 months into the contract, the agency had paid Accenture $13.6 million in return for 2 accepted job offers. That's right. Almost $14 million spent for 2 people to get hired. What a fantastic way to spend that money. $325,000 for Mike Pence's national anthem stunt back in fall of 2017. $330,000 to study bars on the U.S.-Mexico border. That's right, Trump wall. Trying to build that, trying to get that set up and fitting right and working properly, has resulted in just a mere small $330,000 of your tax money being spent. Nearly $3 million spent to study dance clubs. That's right, we got to learn about them dance clubs. So look at just how eventually you have to get to the point where we question what the government is doing. Because when you're bombing Mosul, you need to have a cup of tea handy. Absolutely. It's eventually there has to be some level of people going, can we just not have taxation without representation? I feel like there was a big historical event in America's past where that was a big part of what we did. Standing up and saying, no, you're not going to take our money and then not represent us with it. You're not going to take our money, send it overseas to another country, $4.2 billion to Ecuador. To be fair, I would study twerking for free, and not a single taxpayer dollar would be wasted on that. Unless, of course, you get Viagra, and then, of course, the feminists will be up in arms over you needing that Viagra while watching twerking videos. What kind of a sexist are you? You can't even have a good time with that one, Boogie. Man. If you guys have not been following Boogie Bumper, regardless of what platform you're on, if you guys are on Facebook, you guys got to get off Facebook. Go follow him on Twitter. Go follow him on YouTube. He just started going on D Live tonight. Follow his podcast. What a great guy Boogie Bumper is. So give him a follow. Boogie Bumper. Twitter handle is @Boogie Bumper. So it's not all bad when we talk about taxes. It's not all bad. I'm kidding. It is. But nonetheless, the New York Times, the left-leaning organization, they came out with a pretty good article yesterday. And the basis behind this article is all about the tax cuts, the Job and Tax Cut Act of 2017. Now, many people have tried to vilify this and say, oh, it's just emboldening the rich. It's stealing from the poor. It's stealing from the middle class and throwing it up to the rich. And that's all that this was. You know, and they go, trickle-down economics doesn't work. I'll give you a hint. Trickle-down economics doesn't exist. Never once has there ever been an economist that said, I'm a trickle-down economic kind of guy or girl. But nonetheless, they go into here. And in this article from the New York Times, they have something that I thought was fantastic. So I'm actually going to blow this up for you guys. Let me see if I can get this nice and big for you guys. All right. Across the income groups, most Americans got a tax cut under the 2017 law, according to the Independent Tax Policy Center, but most Americans are skeptical. So 64.8% of Americans got a tax cut, but only a mere 39.6% think that they do. If you have a household that makes less than $30,000, 32% got a tax cut, but only 30% believe that they did. 30 to 50,000? Almost 70% got a tax cut, but only 36% feel like they got one or think that they got one. 50 to 75,000. So the end result from this, what we're seeing from these tax cuts, there's been a lot of media malfeasance on this, and understandably so, because everybody has. I wouldn't say everybody. There's a lot of the media that has that Trump derangement syndrome. Trump did something, therefore it has to be bad. And when you take statistics, when you take numbers, you can crunch them up and spit them out in any way in order to spin the narrative that you want them to. The honesty behind what the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was that about 60%, a little over 60%, of Americans received some form of tax cut. Let me see if I can pull up the exact statistic from here. In December of 2017, polling for the Times by SurveyMonkey showed that nearly 2/3 of Americans and 3/4 of Democrats did not believe that they would get a tax cut from the new law. In this month's poll, 3/4 of Democrats again said they did not think that they got a tax cut. But the Tax Policy Center estimates that 65% of people paid less under the law, and that just 6% of people paid more. The remaining 29% of people saw little changes to their taxes. So 65%. So almost 2 out of 3 people here in America saw a cut in their taxes. Meanwhile, about 1/20th saw an increase in this. It has been so abundantly clear that when you pay less into taxes over each paycheck, right? Now, when it comes to the time of you filing your taxes, you've given the government a smaller interest-free loan. So you have invested less into the government, and so when they come out to quote-unquote zero the balance, you would end up with a smaller return on your interest-free loan. And seeing this is where the media malfeasance has been going, is because they're focusing just on that end result. They believe that you, the American citizen, are stupid enough to think that just because your tax return got smaller, that meant that you paid more in taxes. But I know that you guys are all smart individuals, and this is why you guys have joined in here tonight. And I know that you guys are also sitting here going, yeah, absolutely right. We are paying much less in taxes, and it's been a beautiful thing. What we've seen from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is just exactly that we have more jobs, the economy has been booming. Despite the fact that we have a huge economic crash pending, we will see that come up in the next couple of years. If you are a Trump supporter, let's hope that it's after 2020. He's already started pivoting a little bit and putting it on the Federal Reserve. We'll see if Federal Reserve becomes a normative talking point in 2020 for President Trump. I hope it would be. Let's tear down the Federal Reserve. Let's get rid of that part of it. But nonetheless, we are seeing the economy boom. And as a result of that, more people have more money. Wages have been increasing voluntarily. Places like Bank of America instituting a $20 minimum wage. That's right, boys and girls. It took zero government involvement. It took zero government infringement. It took no legislation at all from the government for Bank of America to say, hey, we would like more workers. So we're going to raise the wages of which our workers are paid. You don't need Bernie Sanders coming out railing for $15 an hour. You don't need New York railing for $33 an hour. All you need is a business that's thriving and being able to do what it wants on its own. If they are able to crush their competition through voluntary means, I have no issue with that. But when they do it by pushing legislation like what we've seen from many big businesses to endorse legislation in order to ensure that their employees are taken care of, all that they are doing is removing their competition. The small little itty bitty guys cannot handle this big regulation, and they know it, you know it, and I know it. So it's things like this that truly do make a different place. All right. Did I get through to you? Hello? It didn't go through. Let me give a call back real quick. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get. We just had a call in, so we're gonna see if we can get them back on the line. Hello. Are you there? All right. It's not working, so might have to be going back to the holding the phone again. But yeah, feel free to call in, guys. If we will make it work. Real Black Lives Matter too. Welcome in, man. How's it going?
Hey, sir. Doing good. Yeah, the first time it kind of dropped off over there. Sorry about that.
It might have been me too. I don't know. I was trying to use the computer instead of the phone.
Hey, no doubt. Yeah, great topics today there, bro. You're talking about the taxes and also the funds. So where do you want to start? I'm just going to make a few comments and I'll let you run your show, bro.
I'm opening up the call line for you guys. Not getting too far into the personal life, but went on a little vacation with the wife and fast weekend, but slow on the news. So it's open floor for you guys tonight.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, first I'll start with taxes because I think that's more pressing, which is tax day.
Yep.
I think, bro, when they have these plans like Trump and those folks, they mentioned the plans, right, about reducing taxes.
Yep.
I'm for lowering taxes. I'm independent, but at the same time, bro, we have $22 trillion in debt. So how are we going to have the debt come down when we keep lowering taxes? How do you think we're going to do that? How does that work out?
So there's this trope that comes from the Republican Party, and that is that you can outgrow the spending that you have. And so their idea is to cut the taxes, cut it on the corporate side, and then be able to basically grow yourself out of debt. Now, this has been proven not to be an effective way. This is, it just doesn't work. The only way to do this is to pull a Calvin Coolidge, start cutting at the spending. You don't have an income problem. You have an outgoing problem. And it's one of the problems that we have with the Republican Party, where they talk about doing it, they come into power, and they fail to do it 9 times out of 10. And then the Democratic Party, there's not even a discussion about cutting spending. So The 22 trillion that we're in debt, it's a huge issue, and I'm hoping that people will wake up like what you and I have done, where we say, look, there's a huge issue here. What are they actually doing to solve it? And I don't think that it gets some votes at the end of the day. So I don't think there is ever going to be a solution in DC.
Well, I think there will one day, man, because here's how it works, I think. If people understand that $22 trillion of debt isn't mostly China, it isn't mostly Japan. They only own $1 trillion or so each, Japan and China. Most of that $22 trillion is right here. These American, our pensions, 401k, that's right here. That's us, American citizens. That's our debt. That's our investment. So I think if we start to wake up and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we should not put as much money in U.S. treasuries. Maybe we should start investing maybe in crypto or something else. And maybe the government will say, hey, wait a minute, if nobody's buying our treasuries, we don't have no debt to offer. Nobody's really buying. So I think we as American citizens have to realize who owns that debt really, and it's us.
Yes.
Most people say, China or Japan, they own a small portion of that $22 trillion. It's us, the American taxpayers, who own that debt. And we don't realize that, I think, most of it.
Yeah, I think that, you're absolutely right that the burden does fall on the American taxpayer. When the system collapses, it's going to be on us as well. And so there is a demand, there is a need, a necessity for us to transition away from this fiat system that we're in, especially when you have people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming out and talking about we can just we can just print money in order to get us out, basically effectively trying to do what Venezuela is doing right now and just have inflation out the ass to fix this. And so, I mean, there's whatever we do, it has to get away from the fiat system. We got to get rid of the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is neither reserving nor federal. And the actions that they've been doing are absolutely atrocious. We got to get rid of we have to make large cuts to the spending. I mean, when we're spending $3 trillion a year on welfare or entitlements, entitlements, that has to go away. And I don't see any candidate actually talking about that. They gesture in that way, and they say we need to cut some spending, but eventually we got to say it's a state problem. It's not a federal issue. And who's going to vote for that, though?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I think I read a study, like hundreds of millions of American citizens, about 325 million or so, over 33-35% of American citizens get some type of entitlement from the government, right? So if you're a politician, how are you really going to sell that to your base, your people who you're trying to get votes from? Hey, I'm going to take away your entitlements, maybe something you depend on for your livelihood, but at the same time you want to vote for it. You see, I mean, there's a duality there. It's kind of hard to sell to people who you want to get their vote. Hey, I'm going to take their entitlements because we got to cut this debt and this, we have going on in the country right now. We have to have more incoming money and less outgoing, so we got to cut your entitlements. Most people in America don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Don't say it. That's going to be a tough sell for any politician. That's why they don't put it on their platform. Most politicians won't touch it. They aren't going to go and say, hey, I'm going to cut your, Medicare, Medicaid, any entitlement, welfare, any entitlement. They don't really want to go and cut because they need people's vote. Yep. I think, bro, what they need to do, they need to make people realize that we need to be more productive and less dependent on foreign entities. China, whoever makes our products, we need to make more of that here in America and be more productive here. And then once we're more productive here and keep goods here, I think we can circulate things in America more instead of going outside the country and focusing, having cheap labor, et cetera. We can keep things more in-house. Now, things are probably going to cost a little more. But we have to focus, I think, here at home. Like you mentioned, we have too much money going on at work. We need to keep that money here, our jobs here, and focus on keeping costs. And wages have to, go up with inflation, but we can't have everybody being here. We have to have a way that gets everybody involved, and everybody has to understand we have to be more productive and not consumerism driven.
The struggle with that is, how do we actually force wages up? How do we actually prevent people from trading, buying imports, or you didn't really touch on the topic, of course, of like how much we're exporting, but certainly there is a reason, there is a just cause in trying to have the most robust and most thriving economy out there. But even then, really the only way to do this, and this has been bipartisan, everyone has said it. I brought it up when AOC was talking about this, was that the more deregulation that you have, the better those markets will do. She says that it's bad for some markets to be better, and that's why they need to be heavier regulated than others. And I take of the ilk that let's cut those regulations. Let's have a booming, thriving economy. Let's cut the minimum wage. Let's do like the Nordic countries, cut the minimum wage. Let's cut the corporate tax rate. Let's cut it and really unleash the commerce in this country and unleash the economy. And let's see that thrive and survive and boom. I don't see a reason why, even with illegal immigrants or legal immigrants, why Americans can't compete against those people, or specifically on this one against illegal immigrants, why we can't compete against them since they're not even following the law and going with those wages.
Right. Yeah, we can't compete because we want a little bit more in salary that they'll accept, right? So if you have people who come here legally, or even in other countries, they'll accept a less wage to do a similar job.
Yeah.
So we won't be able to compete there. But I think we do need to focus here more at home. But I do also think we need some regulations because people will run schemes and things that harm the general public. I heard Nigeria is the freest market economy in the world. They have very few regulations, but they also have a lot of corruption. Because when you don't have the proper regulations, people are going to run amok. They're going to do things underhanded.
Yeah.
So I do think that proper regulation, not too much, not over regulation, just proper regulation. And I do think we consume too much, to put it lightly. I think America, we need to have a more lean approach, not communism now, not for that. We need to have more lean approach because I think we're a little bit too obese, a little bit too gluttonous in America for our own good. I think that's our downfall. That's going to be our downfall. We're too gluttonous.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, on a personal level, on an individual level here across this country, I mean, we have a lot of health issues. I mean, that's one of the big factors into why Americans have shorter lifespans than a lot of people in other countries, and getting into those parts and getting into, life choices that we make outside of just our bodies and what we ingest, but the activities that we get into, we don't always make the smartest decisions. And I guess for me, it's, if it makes you happy, knowing that we have just a limited amount of time here on Earth, if you want to be fat and gluttonous, you be you, boo boo. And it's, I don't know, I guess the biggest struggle that I've been seeing with topics like this is, when do we say the society is more important than the individuals within it, or the happiness of those individuals within it?
Right.
That's.
Well, I think options, right? I think options for one, and this is just my personal opinion. There's going to be people get offended by this, but I think
You're good.
certain people who are obese, they shouldn't have access to like buffets. People who are in poor neighborhoods shouldn't have access to bad food. There should be restrictions. Well, people who are in certain conditions shouldn't have access to things, because we know in poor neighborhoods they're going to have cheaper food. They're going to have a lot of gambling, liquor stores, check cashing places. So we have to protect those people. I think people have free will in this country, but we have to protect certain people from harming themselves more. And I think by putting, it's like I mentioned, putting an obese person and let them go to the buffet every day. That's not going. I know it's their life; they can do whatever.
Yeah.
We have to make it more difficult for them to make decisions to harm themselves, in my opinion. Not like opioids. That's why they have the FDA and other people who regulate drugs. If everything was legal, people would just be doing a free-for-all. They'd be doing all type of illegal drugs. So we have to protect our citizens, I think, a little bit more, in my opinion.
So I agree with the nature of what you're talking about when it came to like the food and like being poor or being obese and whatnot like that. But I think that certainly if you're living off of the government teat in any way, so if you're getting an entitlement, if you're getting SNAP, if you're getting food stamps or whatever, yeah, absolutely. Those should be, I agree with, I believe that there was a motion being pushed from President Trump that, it's going to be specific foods that are given to you, not you get to take a blank check that buys you this X, Y, and Z.
Like rations with the military folks have rations.
Exactly. Doing something like that, I have less of an issue with that than just blankly giving somebody a check where they can sell that to their friends so that they can get drugs, they can get tobacco, alcohol, or whatever it is that they're desiring at that moment. I would much rather see a system going that way in the interim. And then I eventually even want to see that system going away and actually having a social fabric once again in this country where you didn't need government at all because you had your community, you had your church, you had your friends, you had your family, and everyone came together and worked with one another. And to see that again, I think would be that would really inspire people to be better when you actually have to look at the people's faces that you're taking from. I think that really that impersonation or the lack of a person in front of you when you just walk to a government employee and you say, I need to refresh my card, has allowed a lot of people to lose that touch on there.
Right. Right. I think you mentioned earlier the Nordic countries. The Nordic countries have more socialism than we do, in my understanding. They also have a higher out of wedlock and unmarried mothers rate than us African Americans. Sweden, all the Nordic countries, they have a very high. So their statistics, if they were African Americans, because they get mocked. They get all these guys taking welfare, they have all these babies out of wedlock. But really, if you look at those Nordic countries, their statistics are off the charts for out of wedlock mothers. Mm-hmm. Folks on socialism getting all kind of handouts from the government. They seem like that's a model, I guess, for some people. Like, oh, let's be like the Nordic. I'm like, why? You got knock African Americans for having these inclinations and stereotypes in the United States, but they praise Nordic countries, so I'm kind of confused about this.
Yeah, so when it comes to the socialist systems that they do have more socialist systems than we have here in America. That's absolutely true. But the ways that those systems are funded is actually by consumption taxes. That's on the individual level versus on the corporate level, which is where a heavy abundance of our taxes are coming from. And so their tax systems are a little bit different, but then also just their culture as a whole is much different than ours. If you exclude second and third generations and of course first generation immigrants from the statistics as well, when you look at Sweden, when you look at Finland, they're a really peaceful nation. They're well intertwined with one another, and there is of course that lack of marital offspring, but it's not necessarily as bad when you have a stronger connection with who you're surrounded, as opposed to where here in America, where I remember, I'm not that old, right? I'm 28 years old. I remember growing up, I knew who was on my neighborhood. I knew my neighbors. I knew them by their first name, by their last name. We were all friends with one another. And now I live in a neighborhood. I couldn't tell you two of my neighbors' names.
Right. Well, I think that's what capitalism and the gluttony of our society has brought. Since the 1800s, just for folks, just a general idea, since the 1800s, this world has increased eightfold. There's only 1 billion people on the earth around 1800. Now there's almost 8 billion. So there's a carrying capacity where folks think we're just too many people on the earth. So it's kind of hard to get to know everybody. Capitalism and what Europeans have done to expand the globe through trade and through other things that really expanded the population, made everyone have more kids, live longer, of course. But I think that's going to end up being a bad thing, because they're saying the planet can't hold but so many people. The term is called carrying capacity. Mm-hmm. And since the 1800s, Europeans have driven that just years. The earth is very old, 4 billion years old. In the last 200 years, there's been an eightfold increase to 8 billion people on the earth when there was just 1 billion. In the 1800s, well, that could be a problem if people can't take care of those people. If governments can't take care of their people with food, water, etc., you're going to have famine, mass deaths. There's been several, instances in history where countries have not been able to feed their people. So I think that's going to be problematic. And I'm not sure what we can do about it, but they're going to look for the United States and European countries to bail them out, when I think European countries and the United States have helped cause this problem.
So I want to understand what your definition of capitalism is, because I've over the time of doing this, I realized a lot of people have different definitions of that. What's your definition?
It's supposed to be a laissez-faire, hands-off society. I know it's right side of the political spectrum, but always has driven it is cheap labor and then sell at a higher cost. And what started that was chattel slavery in this country and also in other countries. You get labor for nothing, basically. Chattel slaves that helped America and other countries get that free labor and sell goods and capital and not have to pay the workers. So capitalism to me is not such a good thing. I think we need a hybrid. We don't need and we already have a hybrid now. We have a socialist society as well as a hybrid with capitalism. Mm-hmm. I think we need to go less away and towards a more moderate approach to a far-right capitalist approach, because it's proven that when you have cheap labor or not paying people at all, most people are eventually going to get mad because the wages are stagnant and they're going to revolt, or there's going to be other problems where there's elites and people having way too much money and then people at the bottom or middle having not enough. So I think capitalism is problematic, if that helps.
Okay.
Definition.
So it explains it. I appreciate that. I think that certainly when you talk about capitalism and what you talk about when it comes to slavery, right, that is often a conflated idea, and I don't think that slavery is in any way capitalism, because there is a lack of voluntary within it. When it comes to laissez-faire or free markets or whatever, there is inherent volunteer or consent that is in there. And so, I agree of the atrocities of slavery and the beginnings here in America, whether it was against African Americans or against the Irish, whoever was being enslaved, right? I agree that there was atrocities that were done and everything that was wrong with that. But I think that also at the same time, though, I think that we need to understand that a lot of the atrocities that have happened, whether it's with slavery, whether it's with segregation, or even atrocities are happening right now, because I think that you and I both would agree that the healthcare in this country is destructive and in very poor taste. But even that, we can point directly to legislation, and we can see where the infringement and the involvement of others through force and through coercion and through extortion have actually made these systems worse. And as a result, that has only negatively affected us. And so oftentimes people who support capitalism, I want to point out to the failings of those who are governing over the market, and then people who maybe have a more of a distaste for capitalism in some capacity or another would blame the market itself. But
You're right. It all looks fancy. Some countries, Canada, they have a great healthcare system. From what I understand, we only got 39 million people. We have 325 million people. So it's harder to even get more people. Mm-hmm. But I think the healthcare system, like the military-industrial complex, those make so much money. It's going to be very hard to change them in a way that's going to be less profitable to them. Mm-hmm. They'll give up concessions. But I think in order to be like a Canada or there's some European countries that have excellent healthcare programs for their citizens, it's going to be hard to duplicate that in the United States. But yes, it's true, though, about chattel slavery. Chattel slavery and capitalism, they're linked. They're inextricably linked. There's been several college studies done on that. Most of the countries in the world who participated in the transatlantic slave trade, especially chattel slavery, were profitable to this day because of that free slave labor. And they tied chattel slavery, not just any type of slavery, chattel slavery, where the slave was tied to a master and they had their last name, etc. That chattel slavery is directly tied to capitalism and the flourishing thereof. That's been proven in college study. But the big picture is we have to get away from that, I think, and get to a more system wherein everybody has a free shot and there's less uber wealthy. There can't be people making 60 billion, however much Bezos or 100 million and Bill Gates and those guys make, and then you have so much utter poverty in the United States. That doesn't make any sense.
So what is it about somebody making an excessive amount of money is preventing others from making said money? So you had mentioned Bezos himself. What is Amazon doing that is preventing somebody from carrying themselves out from poverty?
Well, one, I think their wage structure is always poor. Any corporate structure. Look, we can take Amazon. If you look at African Americans, for example, there's a lot of them have very high skill set, master's degrees. They force them into low-end jobs, call centers, low-end jobs. And you have guys like Bezos. I promise you, I met a lot of these guys myself. I'm in corporate America. A lot of them don't even have a master's. They might have a bachelor's. They just So it's not really so much Bezos or Bill Gates. Yeah, these guys are smart, but there's other smart people too who don't get that opportunity. So there's an opportunity gap. There's people who are very, very intelligent who get pushed in the mailroom, call center, low-end jobs at Amazon, while Bezos can just take his buddy who could barely get a GED and make him, on the board member tomorrow just because he knew him. So that right there, I think, is where we have to close the gap, so to speak, because there is an opportunity gap. There's some people who are highly productive that don't get the opportunity.
Sure, and certainly that's issues that would otherwise be self-correcting in most markets, right? So if you're using nepotism in order to push somebody to a higher position, put them as a board of director or whatever it is, and they make poor decisions, right? That hurts the company in the long run. But when it comes to opportunities and it comes to people making decisions with themselves, of course, everyone wants to point at the Amazon didn't pay any federal taxes. A lot of people say that that's wrong. Anyone who can get out of paying taxes, teach me how you got out of them, because I'm on board with that. But
corporations have firms. Yeah, corporations, rich people have all type of accountants. I'm an accountant, by the way. They can find all kind of tricks. Well, they pay us for that. We can find all kind of loopholes.
Yep.
We all kind of loopholes in the system. So yeah, they have access to us when the normal person on the street does not. Things like that happen. I think, number one, these companies are too big to fail. There should be threshold on market cap. When a company gets to a certain market cap, maybe they have to break into two. I know, what they call that act? It was overkilled. It's off the tip of my tongue. To where investment banks and commercial banks blended together. So like JP Morgan, Chase, and a lot of these banks merged together.
Antitrust Act?
It was a different act by a person's name. I'll think of the name here in a second.
Yeah.
But it was a person's name. Glass-Steagall. Excuse me, Glass-Steagall Act. Glass-Steagall.
Oh, yeah.
And they repealed Glass-Steagall, and that basically let these commercial banks and investment banks merge. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. So basically, they can sell you a loan and then bet against you in the same company. Come on now. What kind of business is that? Sell you a mortgage and say, okay, we think this guy's going to default on the back end and make a profit off it. That hasn't stopped. So I think these companies, like Amazon, like JP Morgan, like Goldman Sachs, are way too big, bro. So in my opinion, if you split them up, you're going to have more people, more CEOs, more people making really good money, and less people, I think, on the short end of the stick to where when these companies crash, they hit us all. I remember you mentioned earlier about
So what happens whenever you split and then the new CEO of Amazon, the second, fails it? Then does the first Amazon have to split again? It gets into this. It gets into an issue where we're causing businesses to fail instead of allowing businesses to survive on their own. And I think that gets too much interventionism.
Right. I think if companies are successful, Amazon or whatever, they can have a subsidiary or split off and still be successful. I don't think that'd be a problem because it wasn't a problem before Glass-Steagall. I just think these companies are very greedy and very crafty in what they do. They can get very, very large and then trick the public to make it think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a bad thing.
Why is it a bad thing? So what does Amazon provide that's bad?
Well, I think Amazon and companies like these banking conglomerates, they call them global conglomerates.
Mm-hmm.
When they get this big to fail, AIG, for example, they get so big, bro, you can't control them. They're out of control. So you can't really, when they fail and they need bailed out, it hits people very hard who are the lower end, and the CEOs just get a golden parachute where it doesn't hurt them, really.
I would hope that we have politicians that say, no, you're never too big to fail.
They didn't happen in 2008 when they bailed every company out. Per se, any companies had to pay that loan back with interest. But the point is,
I don't even want them. I don't want to give them a loan. It's not their money.
Right. Well, they had to because certain industries were vital. It's like the airlines, so they're vital.
I wouldn't say
to our society.
I wouldn't say that there's a single market out there that is so vital that we cannot allow it to fail. Regardless of whatever it is, whether it's travel, whether it's transportation, whether it's the police, whatever it is, I don't think that there's ever an entity out there that is too vital to that if it were to fail, we would have a sudden collapse of our entire society. Even mentioning the police or the military or whatever it is, I think military would have some drastic ramifications, but I don't think that we would ever get into the realm of just sheer destruction of the country.
Yeah, military and police are separate, but I'm talking about like private corporations. I think they need to be restricted. There needs to be more competition between companies. And when they get too big, especially, there needs to be more clean competition. And that's great how you mentioned Bank of America has a $20 an hour minimum wage. That's excellent. But at the same time, you're going to see there's an opportunity gap. You're going to see that, especially with those African Americans. You see it all the time. We have a PhD, doctorate, wherever. They're going to push us usually at the lower end of the job opportunity gap to where CEOs have this degree. They'll be getting stock options and all kind of other perks. Just because they, do someone or whatever. The system is just favorable to them. Yeah.
I agree with that, and certainly there's an issue there, and I think that one of the things that I see a lot from the Democrats, and this has been a huge like failure on their part to realize this, is that oftentimes what we see is from Democrats, they focus a lot on people of color and everything else, but then they also say, let's raise the minimum wages, and I think that you and I both know that whenever you raise the minimum wage, that who hurts that the most, and that happens to be young Black Americans, and that looking at that, there's just this level of cognitive dissonance that really needs to be corrected. I do want to jump back to a topic that we were talking about a little bit earlier, because you had mentioned Canada and their healthcare, and you had mentioned the UK. When it comes to Canada, there's a huge fundamental issue there. While their healthcare is more affordable than what we have here in America, what the handoff is, what the trade-off is that they have there is the quality. Their wait times are exorbitant in comparison to ours, and there isn't any bills that I have looked at from any of the candidates, whether it's the Medicare for All within the Green New Deal, the Medicare for All from Bernie Sanders, the Medicare for All from Elizabeth Warren's, whoever has been producing these, no one has been pushing an idea close to that. They've been pushing things closer towards the idea of what has failed the Puerto Rican people, where they're cutting an exorbitant amount. On average, it's about 30 to 40% of money being taken and being cut from the healthcare system there, which pushes doctors away, which increases the wait times, increases or decreases the quality of life for people on those systems. And so even if you want to talk about like one of the better systems, or if you want to mention the UK, right now the UK is failing theirs, and Finland, both of those, they're having higher up politicians that are stepping away because they can't get the reins on their healthcare system and be able to pull that back in and be able to make it be productive in producing the goods and services like they used to for their people.
Got it. Well, I do know in Germany, I have a brother in Munich, and he says the healthcare there is excellent. And, they take care of their people more. So even in, the UK, the United States, I know in the United States, we have a lot of people who go bankrupt just due to a medical emergency. Well, in other countries, they don't have that. European countries, they usually don't have that type of situation. So what are your thoughts on that there about the medical costs versus the quality?
When it comes... So there's always an issue where somebody has like an anecdotal, I live in this area, and then it's a much better thing because if you go and you talk to people who don't know about foreign healthcare, ask them if they're happy with their healthcare.
Yeah, probably yes. If they have it, some people don't have healthcare.
Oh yeah, I'm one of the people that doesn't have healthcare. I'm pretty blunt about that. I don't work at a job where I make enough money to be able to provide myself with healthcare. I just threw out my back and I was out of work for a week, and I'm struggling through it. It is what it is, but
hard to hear it.
No, it's part of life. You make risks, and sometimes you go bankrupt on them. But nonetheless, we continue on. That's part of life. So but when it comes to, I got to look into more on the German healthcare system. I will be honest with you, I'm not really up to par on that.
Yeah, not only that, recovery is, bro, yes, everybody does get taxed more, but Germany has no minimum wage. So you can pay somebody €1 an hour or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they have ways to offset it. And so when you talk about healthcare, if somebody's going to get something for free or lower cost, that means somebody else has to pay for it. You know? So it's spread out. So they make sure it's definitely spread out and folks can cover that cost. When you raise the taxes, or they just understand, hey, yes, German citizens say you can raise our tax, we'll pay more. We also get more days off, get more vacations. They call them holidays. So there's a balance over there. I bet they're more happy than the United States. You know, if they're strict. You know?
There's always a struggle of comparing happiness from one nation to another nation. That's always been a struggle. I mean, even comparing happiness from state to state, everyone has different values and purposes and everything else. And so,
I think that feeds into healthcare, though. I think all that we working, 40, 50 hours a week affects our health. Where in European countries, sometimes work a 30-hour work week, we'll get more days off. I think that has an impact on our health, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That does affect like the mentality of coming back into work. I know, like right now, I'm working 4 days a week, 40 hours, and having those 3 days off is leagues better than having just a 5/8 and 2 days off. I basically effectively the same amount of time off each week, but it feels just so much. It feels like heaven, and But so certainly there is some pushes and pulls on there, and if we look at the way that those governments are structured and the way that everything is and the way that the culture is, there's a reason why each one of those, and you were talking about earlier how we are driven on consumption, and when you're driving off of consumption, you want to work more, right? When we look at men averaging 50 to 60 hours a week at middle to higher end jobs, there's a reason why, and they're wanting more, they're wanting to pull in more, and they're wanting to whether it's spend more on themselves, spend more on their families, or putting it towards charitable causes. There's a level of, or there is just an inherent difference between us and others, and it's difficult to compare the one from the other.
Right. And for the people in the chat room, we're just talking about, in general, healthcare all over the globe compared to the United States. And I just mentioned Canada and the UK, and I just know personally my brother's in Germany. But I know all over Germany there's more of a socialism component than in the United States. And, of course, Canada, I'm not sure what their philosophy is. They only have 39 million people. We have 325 million people. Yeah. And I think we consume a lot more, and I think we work harder, just bottom line. Somebody in other countries might get mad, but I think we work harder, and that causes us more stress, more, what are those called, like psychological mental illness things. We have more of that, I think. And then that, of course, leads to maybe somebody taking some opioids or other drugs to with the pain. So I think all that factors in. Our lifestyle in this country is a little bit more out there than other countries. And I think that has to be touched. Our culture probably needs to change a little bit to save us. Like I mentioned earlier, we have to do something to keep our people a little bit more safe. It's a national security interest, I think.
I don't know if I would agree with that being a national security sake, but sure. I mean, there's lots of changes that we need to see in this country, and I think that certainly one of those things is definitely getting away from the idea that the government is going to be fixing.
Opioid crisis was an epidemic. I know there's 45,000 suicides a year. I think it's going to be a national security crisis here soon if people aren't already catching on to the health factors that caused by working too much, stressing out in our lifestyle in this country. We have way too many homicides, suicides, and opioid deaths compared to other countries.
Oh yeah, no. Well, yeah. So suicides and all those are huge issues. We're definitely not number one by a good stretch, but there's lots of issues with the way everything is going and how we cope with things and how we work things out and the ways that we live our lives. But I think that at the end of the day, when we look at the opioid epidemic, as you called it, we had a drug epidemic in this country, and we started the war on drugs, and that led to more drugs being in this country. That led to drugs being on our streets, in our school system, in our churches, and in our prison system, when we had the terror epidemic back in 2001, and there's a giant reason for us to get involved with terror. We spread terror across the world. We continue to spread terror. We continue to create terror. I don't think that the government getting involved is going to be able to make this opioid epidemic, as you called it, any better. It's gonna exacerbate the issue, and it's gonna make it worse rather than in any way make our lives any better.
Right, I agree. Well, Trump is trying to make it. It's not national security. It's up there. He elevated the status.
Oh yeah,
intentionally funding.
He did, and there's a lot of fundamental issues that there is with Trump and the way that he's functioned and governed and the words that he uses and everything else. And I don't know. I wish that the Tea Party and the Republicans would maintain the same stances and philosophy that they had before President Trump was elected, back when Obama was in office. And seeing that flip is really where it gets vindicated that you have the party of evil and you have the party of do nothings. Exactly. We're screwed either way.
Pretty much. Until we get another party or something, people are upset.
Well, I mean, you're talking to a guy that's going to be a libertarian chair here in the next couple of months. So I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
So we will.
Go ahead.
So we'll hopefully be able to come up and start making grassroots changes at the local levels and at the state level, and then eventually come up to the government and actually fix it. And by fix, I mean cut it out.
But you know how, you're right, exactly. You know how it is. They have a lot of power and influence and money behind both Democrats and Republicans, so it's going to be hard for you guys to offset, but I know you guys are tackling well. Extremely
difficult.
Right, exactly. And that's why there's only two major parties. Anytime a third party comes up, there's too much money and influence and power behind either the Democrats or Republicans, and they just kind of push the other third party to the margin.
Yep. Yeah, man. It's.
So it's fine. I'm going to touch on him real quick before y'all want to take up all your shows.
So you're good.
Yeah, I was going to touch on him real quick, and then I was going to jump back in your chat room. But I think it was a good thing because I think he was a national security risk. Folks on this app always harp about how they hate people being doxxed. Oh, you dox somebody's name, you dox somebody's address, but then Julian Assange hacks in Podesta and Hillary's emails, they cheer it on. So I don't see the duplicity and hypocrisy there when Julian Assange is doing something much more dangerous by hacking through WikiLeaks, through ambassadors, high-ranking officials, classified emails, or whatever the case, and putting them out there for the world to see. I think that's problematic, and I think he should do prison time for that, in my opinion.
Let me. Okay, so you open a can of worms. I love this. No, so when it comes to Julian Assange and when it comes to WikiLeaks, absolutely there was some thin ice that they were treading on by publishing a lot of the information that they did. Certainly, when it comes to releasing information about innocent parties or innocent bystanders, right? That's certainly something that shouldn't have been done, and that was an executive decision done by Julian Assange. But when it comes to like the DNC emails, when it comes to the quote unquote DNC hack, that was not done by Julian Assange. That was given to Julian Assange, and that was just merely published. And so if we really want to hold Julian Assange accountable for that, we need to see New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Really, any of the mainstream media, they should be held accountable in the same regards. When it comes to Julian Assange, the reason they justified going after him was because of Bradley/Chelsea Manning, whichever way you want to call her. Yeah. So he had the allegation is that he had assisted them on getting into one of the intelligence computers in order to release the documentation on the military there. And that information was released unredacted. And so there was a threat of violence to innocent people. And so that was the entire justification. But I think that there's much more to it, and it's because when you look at the empire that is the American government, when you look at the atrocities that they've done over the years, whenever they're called out by any singular entity or singular group, within the next couple of years, there's some form of a war waged against them. They're either assassinated, or the country or the group is suddenly something that gets taken out, whether silently or with loud explosions. And I think that Julian Assange is the next victim of that. While he may only get 5 years, maybe he doesn't even serve any jail time, but he assists in some way, or whatever happens to him. I don't think that this was the last time that he gets extradited.
Got it.
Yeah.
So are you for what he does or against it? You said the innocent people part, you're against that. But as far as the overall big picture of what WikiLeaks did, you're okay with that because you said CNN, MSNBC, all of those reporters and our media do it, so you think it's okay for
So there's two parts of that. I don't disagree with the idea of releasing information that is in accordance with the First Amendment, right? Redress of grievances. So if there's an atrocity being committed by the government, I have no issue with somebody pointing that out to others. Just the same as I don't have a problem if Tom is punching Sally and Jake gets some information of Tom doing that and releases that, right? I have no issue with that ideologically or even morally. So there's no issue there. But when it comes to also the content of what's been released by Julian Assange as well as WikiLeaks, there's never been a singular instance where the information being pushed out there has been challenged on its validity. And so it's another way that the mainstream media, the alternative media, any form of media is not held to the same standard or held to the same level as what WikiLeaks has done. They've truly done something that is damn near easy, it seems, here in 2019, but impossible for anyone to actually go through with it.
Right. Well, I think MSNBC and those folks who do get confidential or classified information, they know there's certain things they cannot release because there have been journalists. I think Obama had more journalists fired or investigated than Trump. I think I read somewhere he went after more journalists than Trump. So there are journalists here in America who do get in trouble for releasing whatever classified information, whatever the case may be. But Assange, I think, took it to the next level, and he's working in other countries, right? So he's working in other countries with governments who might be enemies to the United States. That right there is a problem, right? MSNBC and MSNBC, they're here in America. CNN, they're in America. They aren't working with Russians or the North Koreans or whoever else Assange may or may not have contacted. We don't know. So I think that's where Assange made a mistake. He's trying to do it globally, and he can be seen as a traitor to the United States because he's outside the United States orchestrating all these activities.
Yeah.
So that's my problem with it,
Yeah, and certainly Julian Assange has been involved with many governments, right? He's even while being stuck in Ecuador since 2012, he's even gone after the Ecuadorian president. Like there's no one that he's going to pull punches on. And I think that just speaks to what his motive is, what his intentions are. And I think that oftentimes we get the drive-by media and we see the headlines and we say, yeah, absolutely, this guy's terrible because he made the government look bad because he released this information and everything else. But I think if you understand what he was trying to push out there, there's no allegiance, of course, but the people should be listening to what he's releasing. And certainly WikiLeaks, as promised, they just dropped a couple, probably well over 200 pages of never before seen information over this last weekend. And I just finally got home tonight, and I'll be going through that throughout the week. But I'll let you know if there's any goodie bags in there. But the intent of this stuff is to hold people accountable rather than be treacherous.
Right. I know that's his intent, but I think he's going to do some prison time because I think they're going to spin it to say his intent was to harm the interests of the United States, whether it's national something important that can harm someone. Important. So I think that right there, tone, I think he's going to make an example out of. Say, hey, that's not okay for people to just do that.
Well, I think one of the issues that they're going to have there is, so they're only going after on the from the sealed indictment from last year. That was only on the Manning situation. That's the only thing that they've got him on, and that's up to a 5-year charge. They also can't go after Manning for this anymore because she was granted clemency as a last act from Obama. Yeah, and so they're really lacking on grounds to get people. Now I know that there was one of the other WikiLeaks members was just captured in one of the airports, but I don't think that he's going to America though. But it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to substantiate this. And if they get the full 5 years or what they actually get, but I don't think that it's going to be I don't think it's going to be exactly what a lot of people want.
Right. I think they could get him, bro. I think we could get him on a RICO statute. They could get him on some type of racketeering like they do Bob Biggie if they wanted. I think there's always something they can get somebody on, bro. I think racketeering is the next charge if they wanted to. They can file a RICO, one of the statutes, and catch them somewhere doing some type of racketeering. Is my guess, because they did some things that would be considered racketeering. So I think that could be a charge there, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
You think Trump would give him a pardon? No, Trump is kind of acting like he didn't know WikiLeaks and catching amnesia a little bit about Assange and WikiLeaks.
It's funny. Are you looking at the screen right now?
Yes, a little behind. Yes, I am looking at the screen.
So in a couple seconds, you'll see once the feed catches up to real life, you'll see a tweet right there. Trump 2016, WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Trump 2019, I know nothing about WikiLeaks. Yeah, that amnesia. Trump's got a tweet for everything.
Right. People are wondering why. It's like, okay, maybe because he doesn't want to give him a pardon, or maybe he knows he was told something that we don't know, but Trump's trying to disavow. Yeah, I see it there on the screen.
Yeah, I don't think that Trump will be pardoning him though. I don't think that that's in Trump's interest, because Trump has been going after WikiLeaks. Trump has talked about going after leakers, and obviously WikiLeaks releasing information is the same thing as a leak. Trump has made plenty of emboldened moves, and I don't think that the outcome of this will be for the betterment of Julian Assange. He may get picked up by CIA. He may get picked up by DHS. He may, he may move into something, but.
Right, and again, somebody in the chat room saying that Assange is a foreign citizen operating outside the United States. Well, so will the Taliban, so will Al Qaeda. What are you trying to say there? Just because you're a foreign citizen doesn't mean you can't be brought up on charges here in the States and put to death or sent to prison. That has no validity, really, in my opinion, if Assange get a light sentence or a harsher sentence, because it's just like a terrorist. If somebody attacks the United States, they can be brought up on charges here.
Sure.
So
yeah, but it'll be interesting. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna bounce off of here with a call for you. I got one more story I'm gonna go through, but I appreciate it, man. Call in some more.
Hey, I sure will, bro. Great talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for calling in, man. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thoroughly did as well. You take care. All right, I'll be in the chat room.
All right, man. Take care. All right, that was a little bit of a long-winded call, but it was good. I actually really did genuinely enjoy it. Yeah, so it's funny that I mentioned the amnesia. Time and time again, we cover Trump stories and we say, well, can we go back to the Trump tweets? Can we go back and see if Trump is consistent on this, or is Trump once again flopping? And once again, I don't even want to pull up the pages. Let's do it. Let's do it. We're going to go to Twitter. We're going to pull up the Donald Trumps, and we're going to look up WikiLeaks, because why the hell not? Why the hell not? And then after that, we're going to talk about Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg! If my interwebs would start working, we'll pull up the Twitter feed. All right, let's go to the tweets. Oh man, this is bad. It's not even. I'm not able to pull these up that well. Here we go. Somebody did. Somebody did the tweet. All right. So if we look here, we've got plenty of tweets from Donald Trump. Here he's talking about the dishonest media likes saying that I'm in agreement with Julian Assange. Wrong. I simply state what he states and it is for the people. Julian Assange said a 14-year-old could have hacked Podesta. Why was DNC so careless? So he's talking about John Podesta there on the top left. Down here in the bottom left, WikiLeaks called it out specifically. WikiLeaks. Now suddenly, Donald Trump has no idea. What is WikiLeaks? What is the leak? So that is the wiki. Playing that ignorance, many people have tried to say, just like what Black Lives Matter was saying, was that it may be a move to pardoning. It may be a move to clemency. It may be a move to just letting the man off and playing ignorance on this. I really genuinely think that Trump has been so involved in so many different things that he may have quote unquote amnesia. He may be forgetting things of the past, or maybe he might be pulling a Sean Hannity. If you guys go back to Sean Hannity's entire timeline on Twitter and you search in WikiLeaks, he has deleted all of his tweets on WikiLeaks. Why is that? Because the president has taken a stance different than what Sean Hannity wanted in the first place. So there's so many flip-floppings that are going on right now. It really is truly a huge issue there. But quick story real quick. On Thursday, we will be seeing the Mueller report be released. William Barr says this is not going to be released just to Congress. This is going to be released to the people as well. So on Thursday, everyone will be busy. It will be a grand old time. If you guys follow Boogie Bumper, you guys will be tuning into him. I'm sure I will be dropping as many stories there as possible to see if he'll cover it on the free-for-all on Thursday. So get ready for that. He also, Mr. Barr, William Barr, said that he will make himself available to testify on Capitol Hill after the report is released. That's right. He's willing to go under oath and justify what it is that he said in the summary of which he's providing. When he releases the Mueller report that has been redacted. So it's not the summary any longer. We've heard that one. We've seen that one. And of course, questions have been made up about that from Democrats saying, look, these people are saying that he downplayed some of the atrocities, and from Republicans saying, look, it's 100% accurate. There's no way that it's wrong. There's been stories being made, and so this will be the next big step. Will it be enough to make this whole thing a nothing burger? Of course not. Both sides will be vindicated in their own ways, and they'll ignore the atrocities of whatever it is that hurts their side. But I do want to go over to Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. So if you guys haven't heard of who this is, he's the current number 3 runner for the Democratic Party, running for that presidential seat. He's got an interesting game plan because he is quite young, but he's 37 years old. So he's 2 years past the mark that is required for him to run for the presidency in accordance with the Constitution. But he's hitting in a different way because he is a different guy. So he served in Afghanistan with the Navy Reserves in 2014. He likes the Green New Deal, so he's right in line with most of the Democrats, and Medicare for All, which is also in the Green New Deal, which is kind of redundant, but nonetheless. But he is openly gay. And it's sad to say that being openly gay is going to get you votes, but nonetheless, Buttigieg will be getting some of the votes because he is gay. You can only imagine the LGBT community coming out and in support of him. So he's young, so he's going to get a lot of millennial votes that way. He's not somebody that speaks eloquently, but he speaks in a way that really reaches out to people. And so it's easy for him and his messaging to be spread like wildfire. Expect this guy to come up to the number 2 slot, maybe even the number 1 slot. He is the guy that I think that has a strong chance of really pushing out there. I don't think that Harris, Booker, Warren are really going to be able to hold a candle up to this guy. As time comes on, I think he came out right at the right time. It was just this last week that he finally made the official announcement. He is going to be making huge waves, and I don't know if the Democrats are ready for that. It's going to be interesting to see the way that plays out. While we're talking about new presidential candidates, we finally have the Republican. We have a Republican coming in to challenge Donald Trump for the seat, for the Republican nomination. So looking at this guy, you guys may recognize him from the 2016 election. You guys may recognize this big old Republican that was wearing the L. And he was wearing the L in multiple ways. That was Bill Weld. Bill Weld, the vice president hopeful from the Gary Johnson campaign. Bill Weld and Gary Johnson, both by the founder of the Libertarian Party, would not meet the standards, not meet the criteria in order to be even a libertarian, because they both were in favor of the fiat system. They both were in favor of the Federal Reserve. And being on that, you can't be a libertarian by David Nolan's 5 Essentials. But yes, so we now have Bill Weld also hopping into the race, coming out to challenge the President of the United States, the current incumbent, President Donald J. Trump, for the presidency. Will he make it anywhere? Will he actually turn heads? Of course not. Libertarians have abandoned him like he abandoned the party, and Republicans don't really care about a guy that once swung to the libertarian side. There is an abundance of purity tests from people on both sides of the aisle, and Elizabeth Warren got some flack just recently because early on she was a Republican. So these purity tests are coming through. Elizabeth Warren is done. She's cooked. She's got a feather in her. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, that was too close to an Indian reference. She is done. Elizabeth Warren is done. Kamala Harris is struggling right now to make waves, to get any interest back into her party or into her campaign. She just recently released, I believe, 10 years of tax returns in order to say, look, everyone wants to talk about tax returns. Who wants to look at my tax returns, right? She's like the kid in class that wants to go up there and throw their test down first, not for any reason other than the fact that they were like, look at me, I threw it up there. Now everyone saw that I went up there first. And meanwhile, there's a kid that had been done for 3 minutes and waiting for the first person to go up there just so he can go in and be inconspicuous. So looking at the field, while it is heavily flooded with an abundance of people, what we're looking at are a lot of people that are shooting themselves in the foot. And this is only going to be helping out Buttigieg, I think. Buttigieg, it's going to be a struggle between Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, and I don't think Biden's going to make it. I think it's going to be between those two for the Democrats. I'm hoping that Howard Schultz is going to be effective in the independent position. I think he's going to be struggling because of the fact that he's not going to be backed by any party. But I'm hoping he's going to be able to pull away some votes. Because while I don't like the Republican Party, because they're ineffective, they are much better than the Democratic Party, who is extremely effective at destroying the country. Moving that way would be much better. Now, as for the Libertarians coming on and doing who's going to be the presidential nominee there, we're going to have to hold on. Coming up in this November, there's going to be a big event, a huge event that I will be there. And as time gets closer, I will be releasing more information on that. But that's happening down here in South Carolina. Big news coming from the LP and the presidency, at least the presidential races. So stay tuned for that, guys. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap up the show. We've been going on quite a while. It was a fantastic call with Black Lives Matter. I appreciate you calling in. I really do. It was a good conversation. We disagreed on a lot, but we were able to keep going, and it was a really good conversation. I appreciate it. I like that. I like it whenever it's not just bumping heads against each other, but just sharing ideas and challenging each other. And that was good. It was beautiful. But I'll see you guys coming up this Friday night. In the interim, in between Monday night with me and Friday night with me, there are still 3 other shows. Hopefully, I believe Spike's coming back on Wednesday. But nonetheless, tomorrow night, about 8 p.m., you guys will be able to see Muddy Waters of Freedom. That's going to be with Spike and Matt. And they're going to be breaking down the entire news week. I'm sure they're going to be talking about Julian Assange. So if you guys want the always intelligent and filled with satire, filled with comical jokes, Matt and Spike tomorrow night, it's going to be a great show, I'm sure. If Spike is back on Wednesday, we'll see My Fellow Americans. And then on Thursday, of course, we got the Writer's Block with Matt. It'll be a good week, so make sure you guys fill in and check them out over here on the Muddy Waters Media platform. You guys can follow us on Periscope, on Facebook, on YouTube. You guys can also subscribe to us on what was all the platforms? Oh my word! SoundCloud, on Stitcher, Podbean, etc., etc., etc. You can find us at Muddy Waters Media or Muddy Waters of Freedom. But with that, guys, I'm gonna head out. I appreciate you all. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you guys Friday night around 7 p.m. I am Mr. Murica, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon, and I'll see you guys soon.